So I'm Quintin. I'm a senior, graduating this year. Pretty excited for that. But I started out here as a sophomore 3 years ago. I came from BCD in Lennox. I'm a day student, the prefect along with Johnny Grogan. Last year I was a boarding student, and the year before that I was also a day student. Um, but as far as my career at Berkshire goes, I'd say that my sophomore year it was pretty standard. Um, I did a couple of new things that I'd never thought about doing before, especially winter mountaineering. That was really interesting. It was a pretty incredible experience to get together with a group of guys. I think there were 4 in the group that year and hit the mountain every day, go skiing, go backpacking. That was a really unique experience. And that's actually where I met my junior year roommate, Alex Fuller. Um, and when I was thinking about moving on campus, I thought about kind of how I could integrate myself more in the community, because I feel like that's something that's really unique about Berkshire that makes it such an incredible place, is the group of people that we have here and how inclusive it is. And I really thought that living on campus would make me, I don't know, more a part of that community. So I did that, and that was, I think, a really good decision for me personally. I got to know the school much better, and I got to work on a lot of ideas that I'd never really thought about before, and I got to be in a lot of really interesting classes. Um, and moving into my senior year, I feel like that's when I was able to really discover my potential at Berkshire, because what I found was it wasn't as much teachers telling me what classes I should be in, but a lot of people asking me what I wanted to do with my year. So because of that, I've been able to do 3 independent studies this year. One in Gothic cathedral art and how that affects sort of economics and society. One in bamboo fly rod building, which I actually did in this room, which was incredible. I'm still working on those rods, and that's turned out to be a really interesting passion for me, because I never really saw myself building fly rods 2 years ago when I first came onto campus. And the third one is classical bagpipe music, which I'm working on with Mr. Dalton, um, which has turned out to be very difficult but very rewarding, in that a lot of the music I'm playing is extremely technically challenging, but along the whole road, Mr. Dalton's been there with some really good insight and a lot of very helpful experience to kind of make my journey through this difficult style of music much more simple.
Were the bagpipes something? Was that an instrument you played before you came to Berkshire?
Yeah, I actually started playing in 8th grade, and I joined a band that Mr. Dalton was a part of, so I've known him for a few years now, even in 8th and 9th grade before I was here. So having that relationship was really helpful moving into my time at Berkshire, and he's now my advisor. But as far as piping goes, we've been playing together for 5 years now, so moving into the independent study this year was a breeze. The only difficult part was changing the style of music that I was playing from something fairly simple to something much more complex. I can thank 2 people for that, Mr. Dalton for the bagpiping, and Mr. Bullock with the fly rods, because I guess fly fishing was something I did with my dad when I was in middle school, but I kind of hated it. And when I came to Berkshire, I met Ben Colley and Mr. Bullock, who both love the sport, and they sort of got me into it, along with Mr. Skoglund, who was a teacher here last year in my sophomore year. And after that, I sort of got thinking about where I can go beyond this, and Mr. Bullock encouraged me to look into possibly getting a job in the sport. So last summer and the summer coming up, I will actually be working in Manchester, Vermont, living with the Bullocks, working for the Orbis company as a guide. But while I was there last summer, I met Charlie Hissey, who is the master rod builder for the company, and I was always kind of captured by what really is an art form, that of building bamboo fly rods. And moving into this year, I didn't really have a sport planned out for the fall, but under the advisement and encouragement of Mr. Bullock, I realized that I could figure out a way to teach myself how to build these rods, and with the approval of Mr. Dalton, I got this shop every day after school for 3 months, and I was given the opportunity to work on them.
Sounds like the adults here at Berkshire have had a profound impact on you. Can you talk a little bit about, not specifically Mr. Bullock or
Yeah.
Mr. Dalton, but just sort of the environment that Berkshire allows?
Yeah, for sure. So beyond those two, every teacher that I've met along the way has been extremely helpful in every class or every sport that I've participated in at school, and I feel like that's sort of an extension off the kind of community aspect that I mentioned earlier. Not only are the students very inviting and very encouraging, but also the teachers and faculty are very willing to help and kind of promote the students' goals as well as things that they've never thought of before.
Were you a day student and then you came on campus?
Yeah, so I was a day student my sophomore year, and then my junior year I moved on to campus, and then going into my senior year, my parents said you can either live on campus or get a car, and that was an easy decision for me. So now I'm living back at home, and I ran for prefect last year with Johnny, and we both got it. So that's been a pretty big honor this year to be able to work with all 40 day students and make that transition easier for them.
Can you talk about the sense of community that you still probably feel as a day student when you come on?
Oh yeah, I mean I've said this before, but I feel like there's three sort of distinct ways that you can be at Berkshire. You can be a boarder, and then you can be a day student with and without a car of your own. And I feel like being in all three situations has been extremely different. My first year, I was at school from probably 8 to 4 every day, just doing sports. But once I moved on, I realized that a lot happened after classes and sports because I was living here. So now I'm usually at school from 7 in the morning through study hall. I'm here for everything. And what I'd say to day students is if you can make that work for you, then that's definitely an experience that I'd encourage, because you find that without doing that, you're sort of missing half the day and much more than half of what goes on here. So being able to manage your time in a way that you're here all day would definitely be something I'd recommend.
Sort of a broad question, but how has Berkshire shaped you?
Completely would be the first word that comes to mind. I feel like I came into Berkshire without a whole lot of focus on really anything. If I did have a focus, it was actually on math and science, which is interesting because now, instead of math science, I'm working a lot in humanities and English, art history and literature and things like that, especially in the Advanced Humanities Research Program. But I feel like, especially with the help of the academic dean, Mr. Splon, I was able to sort of find a path that worked for me and find kind of classes and teachers who really spoke to my interests. And through that, I was able to find what really mattered to me and kind of work towards anything that interested me.
What do you do? What do you do in the springtime? You play baseball?
I play baseball, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's that like to be a part of that team?
And the baseball team is a lot of fun. It's a really interesting group of guys. Mr. Gaffa is a really fun coach, as well as he has an extreme passion for the sport, which is awesome to see. But I think that, especially in my junior year last year, being on that team was a really important step in kind of my evolution as a student here, because I met a lot of people, or a lot of students, who now are very close friends of mine, as well as a couple seniors who were on the team last year who gave me some really powerful insight into kind of their transitioning months from high school into college and their thoughts on sort of life beyond Berkshire.
So thinking in those terms, it's sort of hard to fully appreciate everything that Berkshire offers you when you're a student here.
Yeah.
It almost takes a couple of years out of here where you sort of start to miss it and remember things. How do you find ways to appreciate it now, or how do you in your mind, how do you think about it to maybe take advantage of being here now How do you sort of stay in that moment and appreciate Berkshire for all that it is?
Yeah, so that's something I've been thinking a lot about moving into kind of my final months in my last quarter here. Um, I don't know, it's scary and exciting moving into the end. I mean, the school is really just a school, it's the people who fill it up that really make it what it is. So I'm with this class of 100 people, and we're slowly coming towards this day when we're all gonna kind of leave each other and go on our own paths. And I feel like every day, just by being with those people, I'm reminded of that, and how special every day here is, and how as we move closer, we're all moving towards something that's definitely going to be good and possibly more exciting, and to a place where we find more out about our own personalities and what we're interested in. But as we're here and as we're together, I'm realizing that it's sort of, it's definitely finite, and to think about that is, I don't know, it's not scary, but it's definitely something that makes me think about my kind of college years and what will happen in the future without this group of people that I've grown so comfortable with.
What's next for you?
I actually found out last week, next for me is Bates College up in Lewiston, Maine. I'm going to be with a lot of family. I'm going to be with Regan Haas, who's in my class. I'm really happy about that. It's kind of nice to bring at least one familiar face along. And I'm going to be joining Sam Mayer and Kylo Rab, who I knew from last year and the year before. But beyond that, no idea. I guess the future is pretty open. I'm also going to be tied to Orbis for at least this summer. And the guy, Trul Myers, who's in charge of the school and guide program up there, has talked to me about going possibly down to South America a couple summers from now to work for a guide service down there, which is pretty exciting. Every gift supports a Berkshire experience for school, for life.
Perfect.